Hello, Bob. Thank you once again for joining us. So the U.S. election votes are in, but a clear winner is not yet decided. But let's focus on the economic data, shall we, for next week. How's it looking for the major currencies?
It's a relatively busy week on the economic calendar. For the US dollar, we've got jobs job openings at the start of the week, then focus shifts to inflation and the weekly jobless claims figures and prelim November consumer sentiment figures. Expect the weekly jobless claims and the consumer sentiment figures to be the key drivers on the economic calendar. For the euro, we've got German trade data at the start of the week, then ZEW economic sentiment figures for Germany and the Eurozone, and then later on in the week, we've got second estimate third quarter GDP numbers for the Eurozone. So barring any material revision to GDP numbers, expect the ZEW economic sentiment figures to be the key driver. For the pound, it's a busier week. We've got claimant count and unemployment figures at the start of the week, and then we've got third quarter GDP, industrial production and manufacturing production figures later on in the week that will also influence.
So it promises to be a busy week ahead on that front with a lot of data to digest. But switching our attention to the commodity currencies, what should we be looking out for there?
Commodity currencies, for the loonie, there's no material stats through the week ahead to provide any direction. That leaves the loonie in the hands of market risk sentiment and obviously how the markets view COVID-19 and the impact of demand on crude oil. So those will be the key drivers for the loonie. For the Aussie dollar, we've got business and consumer confidence figures. Following the RBA's monetary policy easing move, we're going to need to see a response to that from both business and consumers. Failure to do that and expect the RBA, to be questioning their latest move. And there may be more to come if this pandemic continues to spread. For the Kiwi dollar, we've got business PMI numbers. And at the start of the week, we've got the electronic card retail sales figures to provide direction. Main event of the week, however, is the RBNZ monetary policy decision on Wednesday. Markets expecting the RBNZ to stand pat, but following the RBA's move and probably some dovish chatter from other central bankers, there may be the promise of more, particularly when you're considering the risks being tilted to the downside the global economic outlook.
With uncertainty regarding a second wave of COVID hitting the globe, specifically in our Asian giants, Japan and China, how's it looking for the Japanese yen for next week?
For the Japanese yen, the second wave global COVID-19 pandemic definitely, tilts risks to the downside for the global economic outlook. We saw the V-shaped economic recovery through the third quarter, and now we're looking at another economic meltdown in the fourth quarter, particularly facing the likes of Britain and the EU. So much depends on what goes on in the US. If we see another breakout in the US and shutdown measures, that all depends on obviously who wins that election, whether Biden comes out on top or Trump. Then you could see demand for the yen jump, particularly if Biden comes in and reintroduces lockdown measures. So those are the key areas to look at near term.
And lastly, geopolitical risk for next week. Still Brexit in the balance, US elections in the balance, and a second wave of COVID-19 sweeping the globe. How will that affect the markets, and what should traders really be looking out for?
On the political front, obviously Brexit's one of the big ones. No real progress, at this time of the week. This is Thursday morning, but markets are expecting some sort of progress report later on in the day today. So that will be key for the pound. Has Britain compromised on fisheries? Will that rile, UK voters and Parliament? So, there's plenty going on there. Will there be a vote of no confidence? There's all sorts of things that could possibly happen, should Boris Johnson and negotiators meet the EU halfway. For US politics, well, no surprise that Trump's contesting, the outcome from Wisconsin and Michigan, losing those two, and Biden's really got the keys to the Oval Office, So that's going to be a key, area to focus on over the weekend, and obviously, could you imagine if Trump does, win on the recount? I mean, this could be quite a shock for the markets, who had expected Biden, to win the presidential election based on the pollsters, which got it completely wrong once again. Trump would be the first US president since 1992 not to win a second term. That would be quite a dent to his ego. If he does win, well, the EU could be, on his next target list in terms of trade, and he'll probably have quite a wrath to share with, the rest of the world bringing foreign policy back into play.
Well, that's all for today, Bob. Thank you so much as always for joining us, and I'll see you again next time. That was The Week Ahead with Bob Mason of FX Empire. In the meantime, stay up to date with all the latest developments by following us on all our social media outlets.